जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे। जय गौरानिताय 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 जय गौरानिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिराजाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतः श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस शिला एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। ISKCON VPT फाउंडर आचार्य सेवरी ऑफ द होल वर्ल्ड जगत गुरु शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिराजाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतः श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस शिला भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य शिला हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपी गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रजभूमि श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मायापुर नवदीप धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगामयी यमुनामयी की जय। दंतराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। संवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naisthiti krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nandagopa kumaraya govindaya namo namah. Reading from Śrimad Bhāgavatam, 3rd canto, 26th chapter, text number 1. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Atate Sampravakyasmi Tatatvam Lakshanam Prata Yad Viditva Vimuccheta Purusha Prakater Guna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Atate Sampravakyasmi Tatatvam Lakshanam Pratak Yad Viditva Vimuccheta Purusha Prakater Guna. Hare Krishna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Atate Sampravakshami Tatatmam Lakshanam Prita Yad Viditva Vimuccheta Purusha Prakater Gune. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Atate Sampravakshami Tatatvanam Lakshanam Prita Yad viditva vimuchyeta Purushe prakater gune. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Atate sampravakshami Tathatmanam lakshanam prita Yad viditva vimuchyeta Purusha prakater gune. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The personality of Godhead said, Atha, now, te, to you, sampravakshami, I shall describe, tatatvam, of the categories of absolute truth, lakshanam, the distinguishing features, prathak, one by one, yat, which, viditva, knowing, vimuchyeta, one can be released, purusha, any person, prakate, of the material nature, guna, from the modes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The personality of Godhead, Kapila continued, My dear mother, now I shall describe unto you the different categories of absolute truth, knowing which any person can be released from the influence of modes of material nature. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, only through devotional service. Bhaktya mama vijanati. As stated in the Bhāgavatam, the object of devotional service is Mam, Krishna. And as explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, to understand Krishna means to understand Krishna in his personal form with his internal energy, his external energy, his expansions, and his incarnations. There are many diverse departments of knowledge in understanding Krishna. Sankhya philosophy is specially meant for persons who are conditioned by this material world. It is generally understood by the parampara system or by disciplic succession to be the science of devotional service. Preliminary studies of devotional service have already been explained. Now, the analytical study of devotional service will be explained by the Lord, who says that by such analytical study, one becomes freed from the modes of material nature. The same assertion is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Tatha mam tatvato gyatva. By understanding the Lord according to various categories, one can become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. This is also explained here. By understanding the science of devotional service in Sankhya philosophy, one can become free from the modes of material nature. The external self, after being freed from the spell of material nature, becomes eligible to enter into the kingdom of God. As long as one has even a slight desire to enjoy or to lord it over material nature, there is no chance of his being freed from the influence of nature's material modes. Therefore, one has to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead analytically as explained in the Sankhya system of philosophy by Lord Kapila Dev. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshano Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamischa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamischa. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyat Desatarine. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Premayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha kalpa tarubhyasya kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam tam navate viriyat kripatam mande shivri namo Vishnu padaya Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna. First of all, I like to seek blessings of all devotees who have assembled here so that I can speak something on Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Śrimad Bhāgavatam being Amal Puran, it requires a lot of qualification to speak on the subject of Śrimad Bhāgavatam. And I beg at the lotus feet of each and every devotee so that they bless me so that we'll be able to discuss something on Śrimad Bhāgavatam. Hare Krishna. So today, this chapter is the beginning of this is the first verse of the beginning of this chapter, a fundamental, what is the name? Fundamental characteristics. What is the name of the chapter? Fundamental principles of material nature, right? Sorry, I just missed. Yeah. So this is the chapter, In this chapter, Devahuti has asked 3 questions in the previous chapter. In text number 28, she has asked to Kapila Dev about 3 things, that is Bhakti, Gyan and Yoga. In verse number 28, she has asked, what kind of bhakti should I perform to easily attain you? And then, second question she has asked is, explain the Gyan by which one can understand the Tattva. And then in the next verse, 29th verse, she's asking about the yoga aimed at the Lord for liberation and how many limbs does it have and how do I perform those things. So, Kapila Dev has been answering his questions in the previous verse, starting from 31st verse to 44th verse. The first question explaining fully about the process of bhakti. And Devavati is quite satisfied. Now here in this verse, Kapila Dev is answering this next question about the jnana or the Sankhya philosophy of which Devavati had asked. So if we see, this chapter of Śrimad Bhāgavatam has 72 verses, and these verses have been divided in different ways. Now the first verse and the second verse describes the benefit of hearing Sankhya philosophy. This is a very big chapter explaining about Virat Roop and other things. So we can have a clear understanding of the chapter initially when we understand. First 2 verses are describing what are the benefits of hearing this Sankhya philosophy. And then next 3rd verse to 8th verse, this division is there, that how is Purusha Lord Purusha is interacting with Prakriti and what are the characteristics of that. And then next is Jiva interacting with Prakriti and what are the characteristics. It's been explained in the verses from 3rd to 8th. And from 9th verse to 49th verse, there are different characteristics which are explained about Pradhan, about time, about Mahat Tattva, false ego, and other elements. And then from 50th to 53 verse, it's Karya Shishti is been explained. And then 54 to 61 verses describe the various limbs of Virata Rupa and how each limb, is been, is been given, is been presided by the different demigods, and how they are trying to create that senses. And then 62 to 74 to 72nd verse, Devtas try to attempt to wake Lord Virata Purusha. And finally, when Vasudeva enters the Chitta, the heart of the Virat Rupa, then Virat Rupa is awakened. And this is how the flow of the chapter is. So since the chapter is beginning, I'm just trying to explain the flow of the chapter so that we can be in line. Or else it's a very big chapter, we may lose the track. So in this verse, we are hearing what are the benefits of hearing this Sankhya philosophy. In the next two verses, we'll be explaining about this thing. Vimucheta prakatir guna. First benefit what we get is, one is freed from the influence of material nature, material modes. As soon as we hear about the Sankhya philosophy, what happens is, we become freed from the influence of material mode. And then second benefit what we get, will be explained in the next verse, that is Atma Darshanam, attains perfection of self-realization. And then, after Atma Darshanam, what happens is Hridaya Granthi Bhedanam, that is the knots of the attachment of the material attachment, material world are cut. So these three benefits, or these three things are affected once we start hearing about the Sankhya philosophy of the Lord, which Kapila Dev is explaining here. So we'll be discussing about the first thing, that is how the modes of material nature act, how one can be freed from the influence of the modes of material nature. So that is what will be the discussion today. What are the different modes? Why are modes of material nature there? And especially how one gets entangled in the modes of material nature, and what happens, once get entangled in the modes of material nature, and what are the different characteristics of different modes, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and mode of goodness. So all this thing will be our point of discussion, and later we'll see some examples of how to overcome from this modes of material nature. So in Bhagavad Gita, this shloka comes, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunya Bhavarjana, Nirvedho Nityas Sattvam Niryoga Shema Atmanam. The Vedas deal with the three subject matter. Oh Arjuna, what are they? These are modes of three modes of material nature. One who can know about these three modes of material nature, he can be freed from all the dualities. So this is what we get. We want to overcome the dualities in this material world, and he wants to gain free from anxiety, and he wants to be established in the self. So this is very important. Knowing about the modes of material nature will help us to come out of this mode of duality. So what are these three modes of material nature? What are the forces these modes act on? If we see, Krishna has got three kinds of potencies, three kinds of energies, that are Antaranga Shakti, Tatastha Shakti, and Bahiranga Shakti. So these three modes, if we just take an example of Lord. What is Lord? Lord is completely in Antaranga Shakti. Or Lord is like, a person, and a man, if we take, he's part of Tatastha Shakti and Bahiranga Shakti. Tatastha Shakti means he's part of, his body has been given by the external material nature. That is the part of Bahiranga Shakti, external energy. And internally he is, as a spirit soul, he is occupying the body. So that is what he is, Tatastha Shakti. And Bahiranga Shakti, external energy, the energy which is acting around, the external things what are manifested is the Bhahiranga Shakti. So there are different items. If we just step down of the temple, we can see so many things. Everyone, we can actually just see that everyone has been controlled by this mode of material nature. And everything, it's just like a woolen ball which has been, woven like anything, woven, and then it's like a ball which has been controlled by, a person is controlling. The same way this material nature is controlling each and everything. If we just step down of the people, we can see the people walking by. By seeing them, we can understand by which mode they are in. Either they are in mode of goodness, mode of passion, or mode of ignorance. Or the animals we see, which animals, are in mode of goodness, mode of passion, or mode of ignorance. We see any plant, different plants which are there, they are also in different modes. And if we see, the different daytime or nighttime, or that also is influenced by mode of material nature. And if we go ahead, we can see how different places are being influenced by mode of material nature. We come to a temple, it's like, we feel quite sattvic. A person whoever walks in the temple, he feels so ebullient, so enlivened. Why? Because the ambience is so wonderful. This place comes in the mode of goodness or mode of transcendental platform. So that's why when they come in this place, and the same person, he goes in a place where it is, he goes in a pub where, everything has been, rock and roll music is going on. People are drinking and everything. It's like a place he's going in a mode of passion or mode of ignorance. And if he goes, sees, he has to catch a flight or anything like that. The person is acting in a mode of, passion, just running around everywhere. So each and every place, each and every activity, each and every situation, if we see, that can be categorized and that can be understood by understanding these three modes of material nature. So we can understand people's understanding. Sometimes we need to understand, we speak to a person and we come to understand what is his nature just by the words what he speaks, what is his understanding about life, or what is his understanding at that time. And when we see how they are working or how they are acting, we understand everything has been so much been controlled by this modes. And then we see the sacrifices what people do around, or the austerity, charity, the renunciation, all these things can be categorized in the modes of material nature. So everything has been controlled by the modes of material nature. So now we understand that everything is under the modes of material nature, but what is the purpose behind the modes of material nature? Why is everything been controlled by modes of material nature? What happens is, just like a person, he turns away from Krishna, then he's saying, he's facing towards Maya. This, what is this shloka in CC? Surya, what is that shloka? Krishna Bhairmukha Bhoga Vancha Kare Maya Nikataste Maya Jhapatiya Kare. The moment we turn away from Krishna, Maya is there to capture us. And immediately Krishna, as soon as we turn away from Krishna, there is material nature which is telling, yes, you are there with me. And a living entity, if he wants to serve the Lord, he can, turn and, turn towards the material nature, which is Mahamaya, which is the energy of the Lord, which is internal energy of the Lord. But whereas as soon as he turns away from it, it's like, we are telling yes to Krishna, yes to Maya, and no to Krishna. So we are like this, if we go in a place, a small child, girl, sees her mother cooking very nicely. And immediately after cooking very nicely, she tells that, I also want to imitate. I also want to do the same cooking. But mother understands that, it's very, very challenging for the small girl to deal with the fire, to deal with the knife, or, to do anything. But then the child is very, very stubborn that he definitely want to cook. Then what does the mother do? Mother gets a small kit of utensils from the market and gives it to the children. And just by giving to the children, she's again cooking, but in a imitating mode she's cooking. And then she's cutting the vegetables, cooking them, and trying to boil and everything. But then after everything is over, the play is over, when she's feeling hungry, where she will come? She will come to the mother for asking for lunch. So it's like that, or we see this example of, people go to this beach, and there they wonderfully construct the palaces or the place. The children construct a very beautiful palaces to construct a wonderful palace out of sand. And when asked, at the end of the day, when the evening is setting, will the children stay there? No. Children won't stay there in that place. But it's just for the construction that, I have done something. They want to act like that. And then immediately they have to leave and they have to come back to the place where their actual residence is. Same way, Krishna has, we living entities, we have become so rebellious against Krishna that, we don't want to be part and live with Krishna and Golok Vrindavan. And because of that thing, Krishna has created this material world so that he has given an opportunity, just like the small child has been given an opportunity to imitate like Krishna. Same way Krishna is giving this material world. And we are trying to act just like how Krishna wanted to act. And then we want to enjoy in the way what Krishna wanted to be. Or we want to be the proprietor of everything, whatever is there. Because we are not able to do that in the spiritual world, and we have been rebelling against Krishna. That's why Krishna has created this material world, and he has sent everyone here so that he can be under the modes, under this material nature. And it's just like, if we just turn away from this mode of material nature and turn towards Krishna, then it's very easy that, we can go back to him and serve him. If we just see how the modes of material nature act actually, modes of material nature, it's like, just these three colors, yellow, red, and blue. If they are there, as a painting, as in a paint box or in a, that will not attract anyone. But as soon as the painter takes it and makes a very beautiful painting, what happens is it attracts the attention of everyone. In fact, it can bring such emotions out of that living entity. Why? Because the painting has done very beautifully. So if we see very beautiful pictures of, the Lord, there are spiritual emotions which come out because the painting has been done very beautifully. Or if we see anything which is the paintings which are just painted here and there, then there is no point like, it attracts any attention. So this material world also is a place where as soon as one comes to know about these things, about the mode of material nature, that's why the moment the living entity turns towards Krishna, that means he's telling yes to Mahamaya and going away from Yogamaya. So it's very, very important for a living entity to turn towards him. So the advantage what we get is we can immediately utilize this body which is there in the material nature to fly away and receive and come to the point of accepting Lord Krishna as a Supreme Lord and then serving him. So this material nature, Maya, has two very important things that are like, for acting in that way, the living entity has been captured here in this material world. One is Praksha Atmika Shakti and Avtaratmika Shakti. That is the energy of Lord which entices the living entity with false charms. That is what Maya does. Each and every living entity has been enticed like anything, He's been falsely getting entangled in this material world just by understanding the false charms what the material nature is showing. And because of that thing, material nature is capturing that living entity and making it sure that he's here in this material world. And it's very, very tough for a living entity to come out of this covering. And then another thing is the energy, material energy is covering. It has a potency of covering. It has been covering with the mode of ignorance, Mode of ignorance is covering the living entity, and because of that thing, it's very, very difficult for the Jivatma to come above this, above the modes. So these two Shaktis of material nature are like keeping the living entity bound in this material world. One is the living entity has been falsely being charmed by the false charms of this material world. One get fascinated as soon as, many people who come from India, they are falsely been, they get charmed by the uh, facility, or not just the facility, but the way the New York or the US has been constructed. The buildings are constructed here. They get so much charmed that they don't want to leave this place and go back. And then there is this covering potency is there, which has been entangling the living entity. And because of that thing, the illusionary energy is doing his part of covering the living entity exactly and just keeping the living entity. This example comes in Śrimad Bhāgavatam in one of the purports, where Srila Prabhupada gives what is the nature of material energy. Since Krishna is very beloved father of the all Jivatmas, and he cannot directly tell the living entity to turn towards him, but then he can make it turn towards by the help of illusionary energy, or this material energy. What happens is, a mother, she cannot correct the child directly. So what does the mother do? She appoints a teacher, and that teacher is very, very harmful, very, very strong and sharp, deals very strongly with the child. And to teach the student about the education and everything, that he's appointed, the tuition teacher is appointed, and that tuition teacher is very, very strong in dealing with that child. And when the child is, that is for the benefit of the child that the teacher has been appointed. And just because the mother cannot directly tell the child to study very strongly, since the child is very, very disobedient, but then this teacher has been appointed so that the child has been punished properly, and has been, and so that he can come to the right path and, understand and study. Same way, the Lord is appointing this material nature so that the living entity turns towards the Lord and, understands his nature, understands the nature of the material world, and then turn towards Krishna, who is his benefactor father. So it's very, very important for us to understand this about this material modes of nature. So if we understand how these modes work, then what happens is our understanding becomes very clear, and we can judge ourselves which mode we are acting in. Energy of mind consisting of these modes of material nature is very, very difficult to overcome. It's not an easy thing for a living entity to cross over this material world, and especially when these three modes of material nature are acting so very strongly. Everyone has been entangled in these three modes of material nature. And it's very, very difficult, very, very difficult for one to cross this modes of material nature. But it's possible only and only when we take shelter of Lord. Unless and until we take shelter of the Lord, it's not possible that one can cross over this material modes. It's not possible at all. So it's very important for a devotee to take shelter of the Lord to cross over this material nature, or else it's not possible for us to cross over this material nature. Just like this guna, it's been entangled in the rope. That's how a living entity has been entangled in the rope. But a person who is not bound by the ropes can help that person to come out of the rope. So it's very important that we understand that Krishna is not bounded by the modes of material nature, and his representative of pure devotees are one who are not bounded by this modes of material nature, and they can help a person who is bounded by by these ropes or the gunas. And just by taking the help of these personalities, we can come out of this modes of gunas. So how do we take shelter of these? How do we come out of the gunas is, unless and until we surrender to such personalities, surrender to Krishna and, hear from the persons who are acting above the gunas, then only it's possible for us to come out of this modes of material nature. Unless and until we hear about the glories of Lord Krishna, unless and until we hear how the modes of material nature act, what is the way one can come out of this modes of material nature is by hearing from the spiritual master, from hearing from the devotees who help us to come out of this modes of material nature. So it's very, very important that one has to hear from the modes of material nature. We see so many examples, Unless and until one knows about the Lord, it's not possible. If we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, this example comes of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he was such a great scholarly person, but he was not coming to a conclusion of understanding who is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If we see the verses, it's very beautiful verses. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to Gundicha, comes to the temple, Jagannath Puri temples, and when he's about to take darshan of Lord Jagannath, what happens is he's in such an ecstasy that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just wanted to take darshan of Lord Jagannath, and he runs, towards the altar and tries to embrace Lord Jagannath. But the Pandas actually stop Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and in that stoppation, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu falls down. And there, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya somehow is present during that time. And he sees Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in such a state of ecstasy that he has fallen in the temple hall. And just out of seeing that such a wonderful, beautiful sannyasi has fallen, he takes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in such a state that he is not even breathing because of his ecstasy of meeting Lord Jagannath. And he comes to that point, and then he immediately takes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back to his home. And there he tries to wake Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then it's very, very difficult. It's not possible that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes out of his ecstasy. But then when Lord Nityananda Prabhu and others, they come and they chant the glories of Lord Chaitanya, when they chant the glories of Lord, then that time Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes out of the ecstasy. And there is a very beautiful dialogue between Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Gopinath Acharya. During the discussion, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, even though he is such a scholarly person, but he did not understand who Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. And during his conversation, there is this beautiful dialogue between them. The disciples of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says that how can we accept Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be Supreme Lord? And they tell, Shishya kahe Ishvara Tattva Sada Anumane, Acharya kahe Anumane nahi Ishvara Jnane. Unless and until the disciples of Bhattacharya said, we derive knowledge of the absolute truth by logical understanding, logical hypothesis. And then Gopinath Acharya has replied, one cannot attain the real knowledge of Supreme Lord just by logical hypothesis or understanding. But then it's possible only, अनुमान प्रमाण नहीं ईश्वर तत्व ज्ञाने कृपा विना ईश्वर कहे नहीं जाने. Gopinath Acharya continued, one cannot understand the Supreme Lord only by his mercy, not by guesswork or hypothesis. So unless and until we just keep judging the Lord, or we want to understand the Lord, it's not possible unless we hear from a bona fide Acharya. Or we cannot understand the Lord by hypothesis, or just by analytical study of this material nature, we cannot understand who the Lord is. So it's very important that we hear about the Lord, we hear about the material nature from a bona fide spiritual master. Then only it's possible for us to understand this thing. Ishvara kripaleshe hayate yahar seite ishvara tattva jani bina par. The Acharya continued, if one receives but a tiny bit of Lord's favor by the dint of devotional service, he can understand the nature of personality of Godhead. So unless and until a person gets the mercy of the Lord, it's not possible to know the Lord. And without knowing the Lord, it's not possible for us to understand the modes of material nature and how they act. So it's very, very important that we hear about the Supreme Lord from a bona fide spiritual master or bona fide devotee. Then only it's possible for us to understand these things. So, यदापि जगत गुरु तुम्ही शास्त्र जानवान पृथ्वी नहीं पंडित तुम्हारा समान ईश्वर कृपालेशे नाही पतो माते अथेव ईश्वर तत्व ना पारे जानते. Gopinath Acharya is again addressing Bhattacharya. You are such a great scholarly teacher, and you have so many disciples, and you are such a great scholar on the earth, but you are bereft of the pinch of Lord's mercy. And because you are bereft of Lord, Prince of Lord Mercy, you cannot understand him, even though he is present right in front of you in your home. That is the great tragedy, that Lord is there in front of Sarvam Bhattacharya, but unless he had received the Lord's mercy, it is not possible for him to understand. So it's very, very important that even the Lord might be there in front of us. Like same example, if we see, the Lord was present in front of Duryodhan, but he could not understand who the Supreme Lord is. And but see, the devotees, for Arjuna it was very much possible to understand because he was a great devotee of the Lord. Or the Pandavas could understand who the Supreme Lord is. Because, because of bhakti, because they had devotion towards Lord, it was possible. As Prabhupada tells in this purport also, that it's only with devotion that one can understand the Supreme Lord, or else it's not possible for one to understand who the Supreme Lord is. And without understanding the Supreme Lord, it's not possible for one to get out of this material mode of this material nature actually. So unless and until one hears in parampara about the Supreme Lord, one cannot overcome this material nature. And for that, it's very, very important that and to increase our devotion by hearing about the Lord, knowing about the Lord, and hearing about and increasing our devotion about the Supreme Lord. So unless a living entity or a devotee does this thing, it's not possible. Then it become very, very difficult to give up this enjoying propensity, this, especially the propensity to lord it over the material nature. Prabhupada has written so many times in so many purports that a living entity has been entangled in this material world just because of this desire to lord it over material nature. Because he just wants to lord it over material nature. The moment he gives up this desire and just want to serve Krishna, it's possible for him to go back home, back to Godhead by surrendering himself completely at the lotus feet of Krishna. So for that, a living entity has to take the process of, process of bhakti, especially through the process of hearing. Once a living entity starts hearing about the Lord, it's very much possible that he develops this devotion again and again. So we'll stop here. Is there any questions or comments or reflections? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhu, you were speaking about the modes of material nature and how we can perceive them by their characteristics and different things like that. So I was just thinking about this recently, that we see that as devotees also we're influenced by different modes, and different devotees are primarily influenced by different modes also. So I was just wondering what your realizations are on how do we engage and serve with other devotees if they're in a mode that's not conducive with ours. Like, for example, someone who's more primarily in the mode of goodness, it's very, how do you say, like, it doesn't mix well when they influence with people, or sorry, when they interact with people more in the mode of passion or ignorance. It's just like, yeah, you could say it's like rubbing the wrong way. It's not distasteful, I don't know the right word, but yeah, it's uncomfortable. So, but if we have to do that for our service, what are some practical tips that you could give advice for?
It's very important for us, first of all, to understand, we were discussing about this modes of goodness, passion and ignorance. The moment we understand about these modes and how we are acting in that mode, we should understand which mode we are in. First, we should be able to judge in that mode. And then what happens is our interaction with that devotee, if that devotee might be in mode of ignorance or mode of passion, he might be acting in that mode, or that mode has been influenced from, that devotee has been influenced by that mode a lot. And we understand that by the interaction, we understand that his response is not proper. Then, we take a time to respond it properly. At least from our side, we understand that if we are in a proper mode, and then if we are able to interact with that devotee in a proper way, then, eventually, if there might be some wrong interactions which may take place, but then we come to a point and we discuss about this thing. We discuss about him with him clearly when he is in the mode of goodness. So in the morning, early morning, or the morning time is the best time when the devotees are in proper mode. Sometimes when they are been chastised, or there's a lot of hard work what they have been doing, or there's a lot of services what they have been doing, and if we interact in a wrong way at and then the interaction may go wrong. But then in the morning time, it's very easy for a person to interact very properly, because his thought process is very clear, and he is acting in mode of goodness most of the time, because the time goes in the same way. Morning 4 to 8 p.m. is like the mode of goodness which is acting. And from 8 onwards, there is this mode of passion which acts around 8 to 12 p.m. And then 12 to 4, it's mode of ignorance which is acting. So if we see all our activities also, they are influenced more or less by goodness, passion and ignorance. Morning time we are in the mode of goodness, where we are glorifying the Lord, sitting in one place, chanting and other things. And that is how we understand that interacting in those time zones also can help. And then interacting, knowing our own nature, our own nature, in which mode we are in. Generally what happens is, over a period of time we understand, we are mostly mostly acting in which mode. And it's very, very important for a devotee to come to a point of regulation, so that he comes to a mode of goodness at least. That anyway we have to cross over these modes of passion, goodness, passion and ignorance, and we have to come to a point of transcendental platform. But then for coming to a transcendental platform, at least one devotee has to come to the platform of mode of goodness. And then if he comes and then he interacts with the devotees in a proper way, then it's possible for him to understand how a devotee is acting actually, and then deal with him properly. This is my little understanding about this thing. Modes of material nature are very, very, very tough and very, very complicated. It's not easy how a person acts, but they have influence just not by the modes, but more the nature of a devotee or other things are there. So many circumstances are there. He might have just gone through some different phase in his day or something like that. So the interaction can be influenced by so many different ways. And we can just make sure we deal with him very properly. Thank you. Yes. Mike. Haribol, Prabhu Jesus.
Thank you for making many nice points in the class. I had several things I wanted to say, but I think I can just say the most important one because there isn't very much time left. So Lord Chaitanya, he's talking to Sanatana Goswami, and he says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the body of a devotee is never material. He is considered to be transcendental, full of spiritual bliss. At the time of initiation, when a devotee fully surrenders unto the service of the Lord, Krishna accepts him to be as good as himself. So we have to be careful when we judge the devotees as being affected by this mode or that mode. Like, for example, some of the symptoms of ecstatic love are also symptoms of the mode of ignorance.
Yeah.
And so mostly my understanding is that this description of the modes are so that we can look in ourselves to see how we are contaminated by the modes, because it makes us humble, for one thing, and we realize that we have a long way to go, and we should be more absorbed in the devotional service, as you made the point. That's the only way to transcend the modes. The other verse they quote in that connection is, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yoga nisevate sunakun samatichayastam brahmabhuya kalpate. So I just wanted to put that point in the discussion so we don't go around criticizing devotees for being in the modes and fall down from the transcendental position ourselves.
Correct. Thank you for making this point. Actually, all this discussion is meant for our own self. It's not meant to judge others. The moment we start judging, then we are acting in the mode of passion. So it's more important. This understanding of the modes makes us clear that this understanding is for oneself and my own application, not for seeing others how they are acting or like that. So, but our understanding should increase more and more. Thank you, Prabhu, for bringing this point. Yeah. Hare Krishna. So we'll end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tantra Śrimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.